So, what does it really take to run a bookstore here in the 21st century? It's not just about having a passion for paper and ink anymore. Today, we're going to look at how you bridge that gap between a great idea, like your classic neighborhood bookstore, and the pretty complex technology that actually makes it all run. Just think about it. Not that long ago, managing inventory was this nightmare of clipboards, spreadsheets, and endless hours in the stockroom. It was slow, it was full of mistakes, and you never really knew what you had. Now, compare that to today's digital systems. You've got real-time updates, automated tracking, and actual data telling you what people want to buy. That massive leap is exactly what we're going to unpack.
Okay, so how do you actually get from that messy stockroom to a totally streamlined system? Well, you need a plan. You need a blueprint. So first up, we're going to look at the high-level design for a modern bookstore's tech stack. And this is all based on some really fascinating academic research.
And our guide for all this? It actually comes from a paper published in the International Journal of Research Publication and Reviews. It's basically a deep dive into how technology can completely overhaul retail operations, using a business just like a bookstore as the perfect example.
And the paper puts the motivation right up front. The whole reason for this shift, the big why, is all about operational efficiency. Moving from manual to digital isn't just for looks. It's about survival. It's about cutting down on mistakes and saving time, which, at the end of the day, saves a ton of money.
So the research breaks the whole system down into these 4 key parts. Think of it like this, right? The front end, that's the beautiful storefront and the cash register, what you and I actually see and use. The back end is the engine room, hidden away, processing every single sale and order. The database, that's the brain. It's the master library that remembers every book, every customer, every sale. And APIs, they're the messengers, constantly running back and forth, making sure the storefront, the engine, and the brain are all talking to each other perfectly. That's a great mental map, but it's still a little abstract, isn't it? I mean, what does that engine and brain actually look like? How do you translate that diagram into real, working code that you can actually run? Well, let's find out.
All right, let's get our hands dirty and dive into the code. We're going to build the digital equivalent of a bookshelf. This is the absolute core of our inventory system, where every single book is going to be stored and tracked. So this little piece of code right here is our blueprint. Now, you see it says hero? That's just a common placeholder developers use. But for our purposes, just think of it as book. This code defines the information we need for each book. An ID, which is like its unique barcode, a name, which is the title, and then you see secret_name. Let's pretend that's our sensitive data, like the confidential price we paid the supplier. So how do we get a new book onto our digital shelf? We use this function. When a new box of books arrives at the store, this code is what the system runs to create a new entry for each one in our database. It just takes the book's details, adds them to the list, and commits them to the system's memory. It's simple, but it's super powerful.
And what happens when a customer asks, "Hey, do you have this book in stock?" Well, this function handles that. It lets us get or read the information for one specific book using its ID. This all seems great, right? But this is exactly where we run into a really big problem. And here it is, the critical issue. With the code written just like this, when a customer's app asks for a book's details, we send back everything. And that includes the secret_name, our confidential supplier cost. That is a massive security risk. You can't just have your internal business data floating out there for anyone to see. This is the exact kind of vulnerability the research paper warns us about. And the solution is actually pretty elegant. Instead of having just one data model, we create 2. One model for our internal use has everything, including that secret supplier cost. But then we create a second, public model. And that one only has the information that's safe for a customer to see. This way, the sensitive data never, ever leaves our back end. It's a really fundamental principle of building secure software.
Okay, so we've gone from a high-level theory down into the weeds of the code, and we've even fixed a major security flaw. But what's the real point? What's the payoff? Let's connect all this technical work
back to the real-world benefits that the research actually measured. This is why getting the code right matters so much.
First off, a 30 to 40% improvement in inventory turnover. Now, what does that mean? It means books are selling faster instead of just sitting on the shelves collecting dust. The system gives you the data to stock the titles people actually want to buy, so you can move from guesswork to precision. And this next one is even bigger, a 50 to 70% drop in stock discrepancies. You know that frustrating moment when the computer says you have a book, but it's nowhere to be found? This system massively reduces that, and that means fewer lost sales and much happier customers. And finally, we get to the bottom line, a potential 25% boost in sales revenue. It's a pretty simple equation, really. When you reliably have the books that your customers are looking for, you sell more books. That right there is the ultimate business case for investing in this technology. So we've built a solid foundation. But as we all know, technology never, ever stands still. So let's look ahead to the next chapter and explore the emerging tech that's poised to transform our little bookstore even more.
And the future here is really exciting. The research paper points to things like AI that can predict the next bestseller, which could cut overstocking by another 30%. Imagine smart shelves with tiny sensors that count the books for you in real time with no errors. Or using augmented reality on your phone to get a digital preview of a book's pages. You could even use blockchain to secure the entire supply chain so you can prove a rare book is authentic.
And this final quote from the paper really brings it all home. It says that for bookstores to survive and really thrive, they have to embrace these innovations. It's how they future-proof their business, make their own work easier, and ultimately make their customers happier in this digital world.
So we've seen how a few lines of code and some smart database design can completely revolutionize the simple act of selling books. Which leaves me with one final thought for you. As technology continues to turn every single bookshelf into an entry in a database, what part of that bookstore experience, what part of reading itself, do you think should always, always remain human?